sir.
Okay.
John
Well, we'll
Beckman's
just-
on by phone.
Oh, he's on. Okay,
Oh,
There
good.
we go.
great. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order of the Waterloo Board of Adjustment for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. Is there any additions or corrections to the approval of the agenda for today? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Lawrence Ferries makes a motion to approve the February 23rd agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Second item, the approval of the January 26th, 2021 minutes. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Beckman has one correction, please.
Okay.
Under adjournment, it states that it was moved by Childs, seconded by Beckman to adjourn. That's not possible since I was not in attendance to that meeting.
Yeah.
We did it vicariously.
All right, we'll correct that.
Are there any other additions or corrections?
Let me look at my notes as to who really closed that. Oh, April moved and Childs seconded at 4:16 p.m.
Thank you, Jerry.
You bet.
Okay, with that correction, is there a motion to approve the amended minutes?
John, you want to do it since you got the correction?
Move to approve agenda, move to approve the amended minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Yeah. We have two decision items today. A second, I did something in my computer here. Okay. The first item is a request by Patrice Ketty for a special permit to allow for a religious facility to be located at 722 Water Street in a C3 Central Business District. Staff report.
This is Western staff. The applicant is requesting to legalize an existing religious facility that has been in operation, is operating out of the building at 722 Water Street. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding area, as a religious facility would appear to be a compatible use in the commercial district. The request would not appear to have a negative impact upon vehicular or pedestrian traffic in the area. The area is served by Water Street, classified as a local street, as well as East 5th Street and East 6th Street, which are classified as minor arterial streets. The site has a parking lot with approximately 45 parking spaces, and there is on-street parking in close proximity. U.S. Highway 218 trail is located 0.4 miles to the southwest. The downtown River Loop Trail is adjacent to the property at 722 Water Street. The Park Avenue bicycle lanes are located 2 blocks to the northwest. There are sidewalks on all streets surrounding the property. The property in question is Zone C3 Central Business District and has been zoned as such since the adoption of the ordinance that was adopted in 1969. To the northeast, there's commercial businesses, Zone C3 Central Business District, which includes Keystone Automotive. To the southwest, Cedar River and commercial businesses, Zone C3 Central Business District. Wells Fargo is the closest one. To the southeast, commercial and residential property zones, C3 Central Business District and R4 RP Plan Multiple Residence District, which includes UniQ, Rivers Trail and Apartments, To the northwest, commercial business zone C3 Central Business District, the Courier Building and parking ramp. The Water Street site has housed restaurants, professional offices, and schools in the past. Current occupants include churches, offices, office spaces, and residential. The building was constructed in 1930 with an addition and paving in 1987. The future land use map designates this area as commercial. The special permit request would be in conformance with the future land use map and comprehensive plan for this area. The applicant is requesting a special permit to allow for a religious facility in an existing commercial building. The church has apparently been holding church services at the building since approximately 2014. However, the site has never been approved for a special permit to allow the site to be used as a religious facility. The facility currently has approximately 90 religious facility has approximately 90 to 120 members. It is currently unknown how many square feet of the multi-use building they occupy. We have asked for a floor layout with actual square footages, but haven't quite received those yet, which is not uncommon for these types of uses. It's kind of hard to find floor plans for a building built that far in the past. There are no minimum parking requirements in the C3 Central Business District. However, as a part of the special permit process, off-street parking can be required as a condition for approval. Parking requirements for a religious facility is 1 parking space for each 4 persons of maximum occupancy of the sanctuary, auditorium, and main hall. The site in question appears to have an approximate 45 stall parking lot, and there are available on-street parking stalls on adjacent streets. There has not been a sufficient detail plan provided to determine the occupancy of the building, which is needed to determine how many parking spaces would normally be required. But given the C3 zoning and availability of on-street parking, as well as a parking ramp in close proximity, parking would appear to be adequate. Given the nature of the church services, often concentrated on Sundays and evenings, it avoids the peak parking times for other typical downtown businesses. There is indication that a second religious facility also leases space within the building. The staff has not received any additional information on this additional tenant. Approval of this special permit could allow any or multiple resident religious facilities to operate from this location, or the approval could be specific to the space leased by this applicant, which would require any other tenant operating as a religious facility to separately apply for the special permit approval. At the February 2nd, 2021 technical review meeting, the building department stated that an architectural review of the space that is occupied by the church is required. However, after further review, it was discovered that this particular church on the 3rd floor has already had that architectural review. They just need to make sure they follow the recommendations that were put forth. The Planning and Zoning Commission on February 9th, 2021, the request was recommended for approval. Therefore, staff would recommend approval of the request by Patrice E. Kettle for a special permit to allow for a religious facility to be located at 722 Water Street in the C3 Central Business District for the following reasons. The request would appear compatible with surrounding uses. The request would appear to have sufficient parking available due to on-site, on-street, and nearby facilities. It is also primarily operated when other uses are not at peak parking usage. The request would meet goals and strategies of the City of Waterloo Comprehensive Plan for mixed-use development, economic vitality, of the central business district and strengthen the development and vitality of riverfront and historic properties with the following conditions: that the final site plan and floor plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., including building codes, fire codes, and an architectural review, which I've already stated, they've already had that. They just need to make sure they follow those recommendations. That's Western with the staff report.
Just one clarification. Is it KETL or KETI?
Yeah, I noticed between the P and Z, I think it was an I, but it's actually the applications, it's an L.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
So we're not really changing anything with this, are we? It just seems like we're approving something that's already been there. That accurate?
Seems to me.
Yeah, this is Western staff. From what we have ascertained, if you see the letter that the applicant submitted. Oh, hey, Chairman, it looks like it's KETI, not L. I apologize for that.
It's I.
Yeah, it's I. Ketia, I'm assuming. No, from their letter, they stated they've been around since 2014, and maybe, hopefully, they're online and can explain exactly when they signed the lease for this property. I see the applicant is present.
I guess this is Beckman. I'd like clarification on that. Is it 2014, according to their letter, that they have been in this area, or they established themselves in 2014, but have they occupied the space and have been conducting church services at 722 Water since 2014? I'd like clarification on that.
We started the church in 2014, and we was using on that time a church by Broadway, Christian church by Broadway, and we left there, I think, 2015, and start to rent that place in 2015.
I think you kind of cut away at the very end there. Did you say 2015 you came to Water Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, another quick question from Beckman. And I think you and I had a little conversation about this. Who is actually required to get the special permit? The building owner or the person that's renting this space?
This is Western staff. The actual church or as a tenant of the building is required to request the special permit.
Okay, thank you.
This is Jerry, and for clarity then, whenever there's a religious facility, then a special permit is required?
Yes, the zoning ordinance requires churches, schools, city governments, government entities as a whole, and hopefully I'm not leaving something out. They're all required to have a special permit issued.
Okay, thank you.
Has there been any contact with the building owner? We ran into this same problem, back in September, concerning the religious facility at 525 West 5th Street. And here we are again with, now it appears, two more in the same building.
I don't believe planning staff has had direct communication with the owner of the building. However, I know that the residential rental inspector, Barry Stratton, has issued some violations for the rental on the second floor. And there's been some question of whether or not all of the building codes are being met throughout the building.
Mr. Beckman, this is Thornsberry. Help me understand your thought process with approaching the building owner. Where are you going with this?
Well, with our conversation back in September with that other church at 5th and South, we had conversation about the building owner not informing the renter that they had to receive special permit to establish a church there.
Right.
And we're going down that same road again with this building owner at this location.
Thank you.
I think I'll go back and just make a quick comment about the special permit for a religious facility. I guess I probably had the same question that Jerry did. I'm not quite sure. Maybe sometime we could get an explanation of why that is needed. If this was a labor union meeting every Sunday with 90 labor members, they wouldn't have to get a permit. I'm not sure what the difference would be, or if they were a gym or I don't know. If it was a restaurant, we wouldn't have to. But just because they hold religious services, we have to get a permit. They have to get a permit. I guess seems a little. I don't want to use the word discriminatory, but it just seems a little bit overly cautious. So
Incongruent might be the answer.
the what?
Incongruent.
Okay, that's a better word. I wouldn't have thought of that word.
This is Western. I know Eric Schrader. He's the zoning ordinance guru. But from what I've learned over the years, schools and government organizations have a tendency to have a lot of traffic and a lot of parking requirements needed. Just like all the schools that we've rebuilt over the years have all had to go through this special permit process because of the extra traffic and parking needed. And typically schools and churches, they're all allowed in residential neighborhoods. And so we try to review those and make sure they're not detrimental to the residential areas.
Okay.
This is Schrader with staff. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we'll get you some additional information, but Chris was right on. Special permit uses are uses that are allowed in sometimes all zoning districts or sometimes many zoning districts, but they're not outright permitted because they have a pronounced tendency to have a significant impact on an area. So, and we do not single out religious facilities. There, you could question whether there are other types of uses that you would consider similar that we don't require special permit, but we try and group similar uses, religious facilities, schools, and yeah, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but any of those type of general similar type uses are all listed as a special permit use because they're all can be allowed in residential zoning districts, which can have a significant impact on a residential district. This happens to not be in a residential district. It's in the C3 Central Business District, and we do not get that very often, but it still has to go through the special permit to review its impact, traffic, parking, things of that nature.
Okay. I understand. I understand all that. I'm just trying to get a sense of what it just doesn't meet every every time, it doesn't seem like we need that. I mean, first of all, if it's a regular school, we never have not approved one, so it seems kind of silly to have an approval process that is going to get rubber stamped. So that's my comment. Okay, is there any other questions of staff? Okay, is there any?
No.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No.
Is there, I know that the applicant is here. Does he wish to speak? Any additional items?
Do not have any additional items, but I have like a question. It seems like on the last meeting, Chris said something about the second church who is here. And the question was if that application can be used for those people too, or if you have to.
Excuse me. I don't know what's going on with your sound there, but you start out great, and then all of a sudden you go away.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do that.
This is Wes from the staff. Mr. Patrice, if you don't mind, I think what you were going to ask is the part in the staff report where the board can approve a special permit for the entire building, which would include both churches, or just your church. That's where you were headed, from what I heard. Is that correct?
This is Schrader with staff, and I believe the Planning Commission's recommendation was specific for the applicant's request, which would make the other church have to come back through a process, although that would be up to the purview of the Board of Adjustment how they want to approve it.
Okay. Is there any other comments you wish to make, or is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Hearing or seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none, is there any other questions, or I'd entertain a motion?
This is Beckman. If we approve this, I think we should just approve this applicant's request.
Really?
I don't want to give a blanket approval for the other church or anything else going on in that building.
Agreed.
Okay.
Therefore, Mr. Chair, are you entertaining a motion?
Yes.
Hi, this is Thornsberry. I make a motion to recommend the approval of the request by Patrice E. Ketty for a special permit to allow for a religious facility to be located at 722 Water Street in a C3 Central Business District for the following reasons. 1, the request would appear compatible with surrounding uses. 2, the request would appear to have sufficient parking available due to on-site, and nearby facilities. It is also primarily operated when other uses are not at peak parking usage. 3, the request would meet goals and strategies of the City of Waterloo Comprehensive Plan for mixed-use development, economic vitality of the Central Business District, and strengthen the development and vitality of riverfront and historic properties. Yes. With the following conditions: that the final site plan and floor plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., including building codes and fire codes, and an architectural review.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any other further comment? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Was there opposed? Okay, it passed. Thank you.
The suite, it seems like you got the number of the suite wrong. It's 301, not 3.
301 what street?
No, 7 Water Street, Suite 301.
Oh, Suite 301.
Oh, I don't, oh, good, I didn't have the suite number. Is that needed? Given the paragraph above about the other facility? Would you like that added, Mr. Keating?
I don't think it'd be needed because the request was for this specific,
Church.
the applicant was for this specific site. So
Okay.
the application, I mean. Okay. Thank you. Okay, our second request by Shirley Somerville for a variance to the hard surfacing requirements to allow for the parking of vehicles on a non-hard surface lot, and a temporary variance to allow for the parking of sales vehicles on a non-hard surface satellite lot for a period of 2 months. Zone M1 light industrial located at 351 Thorson Avenue. Staff report.
This is Western staff. The applicant is requesting variances to allow for the parking of vehicles on a non-hard surface vacant lot to the north of 351 Thorson Avenue. The property is located at 351 Thorson Avenue in Zone M1 Light Industrial District, and it has been zoned as such since the adoption of the ordinance in 1969. The property to the north, northwest, south, and east are all Zone M1 Light Industrial District, while the land to the southwest is Zone R2, 1 and 2 Family Residence District. There is an active railroad line to the east of the site as well. Neither variance request would appear to have a negative impact on the neighborhood or surrounding land uses, as the lot works as a transitional use between the residential and the industrial uses. It would appear that the request would not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the surrounding area. The applicant has noted use of the property for some flea market type events, but staff believes they are similar in nature to garage sales in terms of traffic and number of events per year. The applicant owns a vacant lot to the north of her home across Thorson Avenue. The applicant has been using the lot to stage 2 to 3 flea markets a year for many years without any complaints. However, the applicant recently allowed a car dealer to park overflow cars on the non-hard surface lot, which caught the attention of the code enforcement department. The applicant was given a notice of violation and 10 days to move the vehicles. The owner of the cars has been working with code enforcement for more time to move the vehicles, as they are snowed in and it would be difficult to move them at this time. Therefore, the applicant is asking for a temporary 2-month variance with the hope that the weather will have gotten better suited for removal of the vehicles. And staff recognizes with the additional snow amounts, 2 months may not be good enough. It may be a little tough on the soggy grass area. So it's up to you guys. You might want to give them more time, but the applicant was also given a notice of violation for vehicles and trailers that are parked on the same non-hard surface lot, and is asking for a permanent variance to continue to park various campers, trailers, and 2 buses that are used for storage. The engineering department policy requires water detention for parking areas larger than 5,000 square feet, including existing buildings. It appears that the area being used for parking is approximately 50 feet by 475 feet, or 23,750 square feet. There are 4 10 by 12 sheds, 2 10 by 10 sheds, 1 8 by 10 shed, and a 10 by 10 gazebo, for a total of 860 square feet of buildings and a total lot coverage of 24,610 square feet, 19,610 square feet over the maximum of 5,000 square feet allowed before water detention is required. The applicant has indicated that to hard surface the lot and to install water detention would be too costly and would like a variance to continue using the lot as is. Lack of reasonable return. There does not appear to be a lack of reasonable return upon the property, as the applicant could construct a vehicular use area with appropriate hard servicing. Denial of the variance would not appear to deny a reasonable return or use of the property. Secondly, uniqueness. There does appear to be somewhat of a uniqueness to the request. The applicant has existed in the area since 1997 without any complaints until recently, due to allowing a car dealer to park numerous vehicles on the lot. The property is on a dead-end street, and there is a commercial use, which is Pepsi Cola Company to the west, railroad and commercial business, which is Castle Indoor Storage, to the east, former Highway 218 to the north, and property owned by the applicant to the south. Public considerations. There would not appear to be a negative impact on the surrounding area based on the lack of any complaints for the use of the property for 23 years. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by Shirley Somerville for a variance to the hard surfacing requirement to allow for parking of vehicles on a non-hard surface lot, and a temporary variance to allow for the parking of sales vehicles on a non-hard surface satellite lot for a period of 2 months, zone M1 Light Industrial District located at 351 Thorson Avenue, be approved for the following reasons. The lot is zoned industrially and is located next to active railroad tracks. This limits the use of the site for neighborhood-friendly uses. The lot being used for 23 years in the same capacity would appear to be a good transitional use for the area between businesses and residential. The current weather prohibits easy movement of the cars for sale. 2 months appear to be a reasonable time frame for such removal. And lastly, the lack of other nearby houses butts deep lots with homes and businesses on far end, and lack of complaints would appear beneficial to allow the use to continue as is.
Okay. I just have one quick question, is that the fact that all the sheds that are on the property now are under 120 square feet, they would have none of them would have needed a building permit to get built, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I assume they didn't.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Any other questions of staff?
Yeah, somewhere in here, I can't find it exactly. I heard the word complaint because of these cars, but then I see that there is no complaint. So was there an actual complaint, or was it just code enforcement?
Yeah, as I was reading that, I realized it wasn't as clear as we had in our head when we wrote the staff report. So what's happened is the person that she allowed to park the cars on her lot has been in, how do I say this, has significant violation issues with code enforcement, with parking of cars on residential lots throughout the community. He's received multiple violations, tickets, and so this particular person was already on the radar. When they saw the cars get moved there, it caught the attention of code enforcement.
Okay.
So when that happened, then they realized, Well, Miss Somerville also has trailers and campers and different things parked on grass as well, or non-hard surface. So they had to issue her a notice as well.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So,
Had she not allowed this dealer to park the car there, we wouldn't be talking about her property at all.
so are we trying to give her a 2-month extension to remove everything, or just the cars?
So, and she's online, but she's already said, if you will give the person who owns the vehicles, the dealer, time to get them off her property, she wants them off to get rid of that whole issue. And then she wants a permanent variance to keep doing what she's been doing for 23 years.
Okay. So, not saying she's going to do this. I'm just thinking for other people that may ask for some type of variance in the same manner in the future. If we give her this variance, the cars still have to come off in 2 months. There's no. Okay.
Yep.
Why?
Because this is not an approved auto sales satellite lot. So for, let's say, Mr. Childs, you and I own a used car dealership, and we have a site, we run out of space, and we go and rent a lot somewhere. That's called a satellite lot. And that has to be registered with the DOT. It has to have a letter from the Planning and Zoning Department stating that it's zoned appropriately to be used that way. But you have to have a main lot with an actual office to do so. And
Okay.
This particular person has none of that.
Okay. So someone in the future couldn't get away with requesting this variance for like having the property owner request the variance, and then still using that property as a car lot unless it was registered.
Correct.
Okay. And does that registration require variance as well if they don't have it hard surfaced?
Yeah, so it still would have to be hard surface. And so if there were, and we wouldn't, I don't know that we would actually even recommend approval of a true satellite lot that's registered with the DOT to not be hard surface.
Yeah.
But it would require that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Chris.
The what?
I have a Chris Western.
Okay.
I have a question. As
Go ahead.
one farmer representative to another, would April 23 be an appropriate date to have a guy come out and pull cars out of there? Or do we need like May 15th, which is, dealing with the feds number? And what do you think?
My personal thought, I think we just did 2 months just to get the conversation started. I really feel in 2 months, it's very likely that it'll be too wet and muddy.
I know I don't want to destroy her land by
Right.
coming in and pulling those vehicles out of there or driving them. I don't know what condition they are in.
That's one thing I was concerned about because she's done so well over the years, having her flea markets, and there's not one rut,
Yep.
no mud holes whatsoever. So I'm a little leery that 2 months is going to be enough.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you, April. Jerry, sorry.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that a June 1 date seems reasonable. We could push it to May 23rd, 3 months, but June 1 seems like a reasonable date to me.
Yeah.
Given, we don't want to destroy the land out there with ruts and all.
No, and she does so much with it, so I completely agree.
Okay, is there any other questions of staff?
Yeah, Beckman has a couple. What's the agreement between Miss Sommerfeld and this auto dealer? Is this auto dealer paying rent? Is it just a verbal agreement to put the vehicles there? Do you know any of that, Chris?
I don't. Ms. Sommerfeld's online. If you guys want to have her address that, that'd be great.
Yes, he did pay me rent to have them out there with the intention that they would be gone by the middle of February. But of course, with all the snow, that wasn't able to happen. So I appreciate your thinking of making it till June. That would be very acceptable.
Okay. The other
Yeah.
thing, if we approve this, concerning the auto dealer vehicles, is code enforcement going to keep this on their radar to make sure that he gets these things out of there on the date that we approve?
Yes. They, like I said, they've been dealing with this situation for, I think, at least a year, if not more. And there's just so many issues. They will, between us and planning and code enforcement, will make sure that this happens.
All right, thank you.
Does this auto dealer just keep moving things around? Is that what it is?
No, this is excess vehicles that he purchased that wouldn't fit on his property. So he just needed a place to store them until he sold enough to be able to put them over on his property.
Okay.
That was the original intent anyway.
To clarify that, Chairman, so this particular person has parked these excess cars on multiple lots throughout the city and keeps moving them to stay out of trouble. He bought a commercial lot, or actually it's industrial, not far from Ms. Somerville's property on Kofi, and was trying to renovate a building. And he has currently, well, I tell you, I don't know, 30, 40 cars there, but he couldn't get them all on this industrial lot. So that's when he paid Ms. Somerville to park what he couldn't fit on his industrial lot. He paid her to put on her lot. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just assumed, or making a wild assumption, that all he's going to do is move them off and find another place to put them.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to deal with it from there, but we want to get Miss Somerville legal, and she was doing fine until she agreed to rent that space to him and got herself in trouble.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Ms. Sommerfeld, do you have any other questions or comments to make, or?
No, I think you covered it very well. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else there that wishes to speak in favor of the request?
I have one question. I'm over here, but so come June 1st, you said that you guys and the code enforcement will make sure that he has the cars off of there?
Basically, yes.
Okay, because we've tried to, tell him to get him off and he won't. So, okay, that's the only question I had.
Well, here's the question. If they're having issues with him taking it off, sorry, Mr. Chair, but if they're having issues, isn't that trespassing at that point?
It would probably, this is Noel, I'm not an attorney, but it would probably depend exactly on what the lease said that they allowed him to use it. Obviously, he's using it illegally according to the zoning ordinance, so that might break the lease anyway. But that'd be something you'd probably have to have someone look at those documents to be sure of.
Okay.
So so this car dealer, he's not a part of this request. He doesn't know much about this.
No, he doesn't know anything about it because he was supposed to have contacted the code enforcement to get an extension, and he evidently did not do it, and therefore I'm having to go through this. And I decided not to tell him about it until it was over with, and because I didn't want him messing this up too.
Okay.
I'll handle this on my own and then bill him for it later.
Okay, I think to clarify your question, or answer your question a little more clarified as far as my concern, is that as of June 1st, the city may come around and check to see if it's done. But if it isn't, you'll be the one to be cited. So you might want to contact an attorney to see what your remedies are for your rental and on how to get these vehicles removed. So,
I have a grandson that has a car hauler, and I think I can get him off of here.
well, I think you probably better make sure you're doing it legally, but that's fine.
Okay.
Miss Somerville, what type of agreement do you have with this gentleman? Is it something in writing? Is it verbal?
No, he just, I told him yes, and he handed me some money, and that was all there was to it.
So there's no document that exists
No.
between the two
No.
of you?
I wrote out a rent receipt, and that's all.
Well, I think you should contact an attorney.
Well, isn't that Jamie?
I'm sorry?
Isn't Jamie talking? Well, who was talking just now?
Beckman.
Me.
Oh, it's Beckman. Okay.
Yeah, I think you probably should be in contact with an attorney on how to get those off of there legally. So, because you will be responsible if it isn't fixed by June 1.
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if we make this motion and approve it, that those cars have to be out of there by June 1, that doesn't preclude Mrs. Sommerfeld, by dealing with her attorney, to say to this guy, you need to have him out of there by whatever she chooses, April 23rd or May 1 or something, to give her some wiggle room on that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just so you know.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Chair, Western here. Ms. Sommerfeld, was that your daughter that spoke earlier? Can you give her name for the record?
Gloria Bercunier. And Bercunier is Brecunier.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is there anybody who wishes to speak against the request online? Okay. Hearing or seeing none, is there any other questions from the board?
Nope.
I have a question. This is April.
Okay.
So the second part of this, it says the applicant was also given a notice of violation for vehicles and trailers that are parked on the same non-hard surface lot and is asking for a permanent variance to continue to park her various campers, trailers, and 2 buses that are used for storage. So would this be considered totally separate than the vehicles that are parked there? And would we still require her to have a hard surface for these vehicles there?
No, that's the request, is that we're giving her a variance for what her vehicles that are there, and they can maintain it as is.
As they have been for 23 years, is that the point?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, April?
It does.
Okay. I guess I do. That did bring up a question, Ms. Sommerfeld. I have to ask you: are you, and maybe to Chris, we're probably saying that what's on there now we don't care about, but don't add anything else.
Okay.
Is that
That's agreeable? Thank you.
okay? Is that what the other board members are thinking?
I agree.
Okay.
What about
All right.
Charles and Beckman?
Can we do that?
Is it gravel or are these vehicles parked on dirt, like grass?
Yeah.
Or
Dirt and
Yeah.
grass.
And I'm just wondering, can we make that limitation? Is that even possible?
Question.
Oh, I'm sure.
This is Western staff. Yes, the ordinance, as I stated in the staff report, and Jamie can chime in too, there's a misconception when you own industrial land. It's perceived as land that you can do whatever you want with. However, the engineering department has a policy, 5,000 square feet of parking area or more is required not only to have, well, that's zoning ordinance too, hard surfacing, but also water retention. And so she's well over the 5,000 square feet. So, but you know, like I said, the property has existed as is for so long. Had she not allowed a dealer who's been in, had some issues with code enforcement for over a year, we wouldn't be talking about our property.
I'm guessing my question is, can we say you can't put any more cars on there? Can we actually say that?
Yes, because she's already over. Well, I guess the variance is to leave everything as is and not require hard surfacing or water retention. But right now she's required to do both.
Right.
So yeah, you are within rights to limit. Otherwise you could force her to come to compliance.
Okay. Should we designate the exact number of each thing we're requiring?
Wouldn't it be easier just, okay, question for Chris. Is gravel considered hard surface? Like if she would put down a gravel parking area?
Jamie or Noel, I don't believe technically.
Like a driveway?
I think that's something that could be allowed, but I don't know that that's an actual hard surface. Noel or Jamie?
Jamie Knudsen, city engineer. Typically driveway, or it is required that driveways are asphalt or concrete from the curb or from the street up to the property line. Beyond the property line, engineering doesn't, my jurisdiction ends at the property line. So having gravel beyond that then falls back into the zoning ordinance. However, for the requirements of stormwater detention, anything basically other than grass, gravel, asphalt, concrete, seal coat, anything like that is considered impervious, and they would have to provide stormwater detention, meaning they would have to have an engineering site plan submitted. We'd have to go through the calculations, all that sort of stuff. So if they went that route, they would be required to submit a site plan for that. As Chris has indicated, since a lot of this stuff was existing prior to our ordinance for stormwater detention being implemented, the stuff that was currently out there along the tree line and those engineering, that would fall, it would be grandfathered in. Engineering would not be requiring them to provide stormwater detention for that area. It's this new area that she is having issues with right now with where these cars are being parked. If that were to continue as a permanent item, then yes, she would need to do the stormwater detention, the site plan and all of that, and bring it up to code and all of those things. With her looking to remove this and basically returning the property to its original state prior to the ordinances being, or the stormwater ordinance being implemented, she would be okay as far as not being required to have detention and those sorts of things to meet engineering requirements. It's kind of a long-winded answer, but it gets her back. You put everything back the way it was, there's no real issues from engineering's point of view.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, I think we could go ahead and be very specific if we wanted to, but I think in the course of this particular request, I don't see the need to be that precise. I think that Ms. Sommerfeld sounds like a very reasonable person.
Yeah, I do too.
Is going to comply with our intentions, and we could just do it in a general statement that nothing new would be added. I would be comfortable with that. I don't know about the rest of you, but
So adding nothing new will be added. That's fine as well. This is not because of her. I completely trust her. It's just precedent. Just making sure that if it comes up again with this person, we're ready.
well, I think we've got enough exceptions here. You've got an M1 district. You've got 23 acres. You've got being in existence for 23 years. I think we've got enough exceptions that we haven't made a precedent here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just don't. The more specific we can be, the better, is the way I see it. So that's
I agree.
That's all I had.
I agree in normal circumstances. In this case, I think less is more.
Mr. Chair, Beckman has a quick question. If ownership of this location changes hands and the new owner wants to continue this site as Ms. Sommerfeld has established it, they have to either get in compliance with code or come back and get a variance for themselves, correct?
If we add, I would assume that's true if we add that last statement saying as long as nothing changes. That's why I want it there. John, you really pointed out why I want that statement there. It doesn't have to be that specific, but just as long as nothing changes.
So, John Charles, the staff recommendations is not in alignment with what you're saying. So, if you looked at that first paragraph, how would you shift that?
Yeah, see, are you seeing what my point is now?
I do.
Because it's just a variance to the heart.
Sorry. Please.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. Zoom in.
The point is, we want those cars out of there prior to June 1st, and Mrs. Sommerfeld decides what day they're going, so she doesn't get her whole land there torn up, depending on when the melt comes. And then we want her to leave. We want to not encumber what she's been doing for 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want any additional, we want to lock it in. We don't want any additional storage that would not comply with the current ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
And since ordinances are with the land and not the person, correct, that's why I want that last part in to make sure if she ever decides to sell the land or anything like that, the next person doesn't, I have a variance for hard surfaces, so I don't have to worry about that.
Correct.
I would agree with that because I do know someone who has gotten a violation for parking a car behind their garage on the grass. And with that being said, I don't feel like we should be setting a precedence for, well, if it's okay over here, then it's probably okay at my house too. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's why I'm just thinking, well, could she simply put down some gravel and then park her buses and trailers on that? And would that be acceptable to the city? And then we would have to do a variance?
No, because then she would have to have the detention pond. That's what they're saying. If she puts gravel down, it is in an impenetrable surface, which means that she needs a detention pond for the water from that surface. So I'm fine with leaving everything exactly how it is. Removing the new cars. I just want I'll make the motion. So that way it just says nothing else can be added to it. And if so, the person would have to come back to us.
This is Western staff, and Noel chime in if you feel the need to. You could do a long-term temporary variance that this property, once the dealer's cars are off, she can continue to use the land, say for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. That way, if she was to sell it in the next 10, 15 years, and that temporary variance expires, the new owner would have to come back and get approved for whatever they want to use it for.
Can we just tie it to her? Like as long as she owns the land?
No,
Okay.
I believe state law, it's all tied to actual land. That's why I
Yeah.
suggested it.
I don't know if I'm comfortable giving that much of extension.
Well, see, I just like making it so it has to stay exactly the same. So that's why I was saying be specific in just what she has. So if she has 2 buses and 3 cars and a trailer or whatever it is, just be specific, list it out. I know it's not the most ideal thing to do, but if we just list it out, then we're ready for if someone else buys the land and they decide to add 2 cars, like, well, nope, can't do that.
Okay, so John Childs, the first paragraph, if we say that the variance to hard surfacing requirement to allow for parking of vehicles on a non-hard surface lot and temporary period, and then the temporary variance to allow for parking of sales vehicles, blah, 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 must be removed by June 1. Separate it that way. So we have sort of a grandfathering in for what has happened in the 23 years that mitigates the stormwater requirements, et cetera. But we clearly focus in on getting those dealer cars out of there on or before June 1.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the second half of the variance at all. I think getting that out, I think that's easy. I'm just trying to be specific in the first half so that someone else doesn't buy the land and then have the same variance. I'm not worried about Miss Summerfeld at all. At all, in any way. It's someone else later in the future who buys the land because it has a variance and then decides to plop 80 cars on it because it has a hard surface variance.
Right. This Western staff, I hate to talk so much, but the more we talk, I totally agree, John. If the permanent variance for Miss Summerfield is granted, that's granted for anyone. They can come park whatever. You can't specifically tell the new owner what they can park there.
Right.
So that's why I suggested a long-term temporary variance and maybe address it later. But if you approve a permanent variance, if someone in 15 years buys it, they can go and park a bunch of stuff, and there's nothing specific. You can't say what they can park there. It's already granted. You can park there without any hard servicing.
Which is why my original question was, can we specify what can be on this lot? Can we specify what she has?
This is Anderson. You may want to, I guess, maybe act on the one, and then we may have to put together some more information on the other. We could certainly tie it to an existing aerial photo or something like that to say these are the operations that were granted the variance to, with the condition of only having a few, one or two flea markets per year in accordance with the normal garage sale type ordinance that the city of Waterloo has. We could get into some more specifics to tie it just to the use that it's being used for, and not for future uses, and put some wording in there saying any change in the use out there would require to come back for review by the Board of Adjustment or in accordance with regulations.
Yes.
Yes.
That would.
And that wouldn't cause Mrs. Summerfeld to incur any more expense, right?
That'd be correct if we wrote it so that it could be for the continuation of the use that's been out there for, I believe it was 23 years.
Yeah.
We could write it up that way. So maybe act on the temporary one, and then table the permanent variance request, and we can draft some more wording up.
Excellent.
So great. Yeah. So Mrs. Summerfeld, this is not about you. I just want you to know that. Right. You are perfectly fine. We're going to make sure that you are able to continue to use your space exactly how you've been using it with the removal of those cars. We're just trying to prevent someone in the future from taking advantage of what you're getting right now. So you have nothing to worry about. I just wanted to lay that out.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Okay.
Go for it, Mr. Childs.
Okay, so I'm making 2 motions here, I guess. So I'll make the first one. I move that the request by Shirley Summerfeld for a temporary variance to allow for the parking of sales vehicles on a non-hard surface satellite lot until June 1st, zone to M1 Light Industrial District located at 351 Thornton Avenue be approved for the following reasons. The lot is zoned industrially and is located next to an active railroad tracks. This limits the use of the site for friendly uses. The current weather prohibits EV movement for cars for sale, and until June 1st would prevent any damage to her property due to the melt from extensive amounts of snow on the ground. I think that's all I'm going to use for that.
Yep.
Is there a second?
Second, Thornsberry.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? I'm going to vote against it. I think we should have just settled the whole thing today. So, but it
Right, then-
passed.
My second motion is to table the request by Shirley Sommerfeld for a variance to the hard surface requirement to allow for the parking of vehicles on a non-hard surface lot.
I'll
For the
second.
following, do I need to give reasons?
Oh.
No. Okay. I won't give any reasons. Go ahead.
That's it. Okay. Was there a second?
Yes, April.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. I think this is what I should have voted against. I should have voted for the other one.
I was thinking that.
Okay, this is Western staff. Let me clarify what we got going on here. So Condon, you're voting against tabling the permanent variance?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. No, we're not voting against tabling.
No, he is. Brad is.
But Brad is.
Brad is. The rest of us are voting for it. Brad is voting against it.
Okay, so then from staff, what you want is a detailed list of exactly what's out there now. And then when we come back, you're going to vote to say you can have this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's
Yep.
what
And no more. And no more.
and no more.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's not for Mrs. Sommerfeld. It's for anyone else who would try to take advantage of this.
Right. So, Chairperson Condon, can we go back to the first part, the temporary variance?
I changed my vote back to aye on that.
Okay. So that's unanimous.
Right.
Okay, I just want to get it straight.
And remember, June 1st is just our date for code enforcement, but Mrs. Summersfeld, do what you got to do.
To get
before
him
that
out.
date.
Yeah, there's no lease. You can have them out tomorrow if you really wanted to. Just got to get an attorney to make sure, since you don't actually have a signed lease.
So I just want to clarify. So, John Childs, what you're asking the the staff to do is to find out what is out there. 1999 Oldsmobile and a 2000 bus, and those are the ones, or you're just saying there's 4 vehicles out there.
I'm fine with it. Doesn't have to be that specific with the bus and blah blah blah. But if there's 4 vehicles out there and 2 trailers, that's fine.
But then the reason why I'm saying that is that going forward, then if that's what you approve,
then that's what they can have.
then anybody in the future can have 4 vehicles and 2 trailers.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yeah, but we could also make it specific to the use of once or twice a year of a flea market type setting or something. So we can be a little bit more specific on the exact, not only property that's out there, but the activities out there and why this was granted and any kind of a major change in that. So if you did have someone come back and say, hey, I'm just going to buy it for a car lot, that would not be permissible if we write it that way.
Right.
Great.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we didn't, by trying to be too precise, we didn't make it too complicated.
And that would also prevent somebody from taking advantage of Mrs. Sommerfeld in the future, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is any, I guess we're done with those. Any discussion items? If not, I'd move, no, I can't move. I entertain a motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Spring
Okay,
is
well-
around the corner, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry,
Thanks,
Brad.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.